Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes, but welcome. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Melissa Arnold, and I'm the Director of Employee Relations, and I'm here to discuss a new process for entering and reporting telecommuting time through the time and labor system in HCM PeopleSoft. So, as you all know, we've had some new reporting requirements that came as a result of the governor's executive orders, which also included state HR's oversight and reporting mechanisms. We only had a matter of days to get that rolled out and to be compliant. So we had to launch it with some quick fix solutions. So one of those was the manual weekly reporting on spreadsheets that HR contacts had been emailing me weekly every Monday. What we are introducing and training you on today is something that will replace that process and also allow us to get the needed reporting through the queries in the system. Sorry. All right. So a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Um, the session is being recorded and the recording will be available for reference after today's session. So for that reason, we ask that you remain muted so that we will have a clean recording to share. Belinda will be monitoring the chat for us today. So if you have questions, please place them in the chat. And we're asking that you limit your questions to time reporting and how to record telecommuting time only. This session is not the platform to raise broader questions about telecommuting agreements, approvals, or process concerns. If you have questions outside of the timekeeping process, please email the telecommuting inbox at telecommute@sc.edu. Belinda will answer some questions throughout the presentation today in the chat, but we will address questions at the end of the presentation by having Belinda read those questions that are related to the topic at hand today. We will start today with when this launches and who it impacts. So we're officially launching the new telecommuting time reporting process on March 15th, 2026. So that's on Monday. However, I'm sorry, that's a Sunday. But since it's a Sunday, most employees will first see it on March 16th on Monday. We are beginning this launch with you all in this training here today. This process applies to all staff, exempt, non-exempt, temps, RGP, time limited, full-time, part-time, all staff, okay? This does not apply to faculty and it does not apply to students. So while faculty are still required to follow their appropriate internal approval processes on their respective campuses, state HR and the governor's executive order does not require us to track or report on their telecommuting hours. So that's why they're not doing this process. Those employees on an approved ADA accommodation do not need to report telecommuting hours in the system. We collect some information through the ADA approval process. and we provide some aggregate data, but we do not need anybody on an ADA accommodation that has been approved to report any time in the system. So this change is important for several reasons. First, of course, it's a compliance thing, right? With state regulations and the governor's executive order regarding telecommuting, we need to make sure that we're in compliance. It's also in compliance with our own telecommuting policy, HR 1.22. And third, it replaces the manual spreadsheet tracking process we have been using since October 1st. This improves our audit readiness, it strengthens reporting accuracy, and it streamlines the process by embedding it directly into our time and labor system. And this also ensures that time is captured appropriately. As we shared before in some HR forums and some other communications with the campus, if we're out of compliance and state HR audits us, state HR has the authority to revoke all telecommuting for the entire university. So it is essential that we all do our part to ensure that that doesn't happen. So in short, this is about compliance, accountability, and efficiency. So what's changing with this process? Currently, HR contacts, as I said before, have to collect and report this data manually using a spreadsheet, and they have to submit that on a weekly basis. Then our office and employee relations would have to take this weekly data, compile a university-wide monthly spreadsheet, and then combine those monthly spreadsheets into quarterly reports for state HR. So all of this is time that I know we all want back in our weeks and months. So this change will end all that manual tracking. The final spreadsheet that you will need to submit will be for this week, March 8th through 14th. And then, so you will send me your normal reports by Monday noon for this week. And then after that, we won't have to do those anymore. Beginning March 15th, all telecommuting must be tracked directly into the time and labor system, and it's actually initiated by the employee with approval by the supervisor. So we'll go over the specific responsibility and the process a little bit later on today. We will now begin using two time reporting codes or TRCs to capture this information in PeopleSoft. So we're changing the way we're recording the telecommuting hours, but nothing else is changing. So we're still tracking the same employees for the same reasons that we have been since October. You'll see this isn't a hard or complicated process. It's just something new. So there are two time reporting codes that were created for this reporting. One is the TELCM telecommuting tracking. And this tracks telecommuting hours worked by staff employees who are telecommuting on an approved telecommuting agreement. These are the hours employees on approved telecommuting agreements work each day. And then there's another one, TELDV, which is telecommuting deviation. And this is used to record telecommuting hours that staff employees work either one, outside their approved telecommuting schedule, or two, this is also used when staff members that do not have a telecommuting agreement may need to telecommute for some unexpected reason. As you can imagine, this means that at some point, most employees at the university will likely need to telecommute for some reason or another at some point during their employment. So it is important that you all and all of your staff know about this requirement and how to do it. It's very important to note that when reporting deviation hours, a reason must be included on the timesheet. Comments are required for every deviation entry, and we'll show you exactly how to do this in the demonstration in just a few minutes. So telecommuting deviation time reporting code must be used, like we said, if they work remotely on a day that is not their scheduled remote day. For example, they have an approved agreement to telecommute on Tuesday and Wednesday, but maybe had something come up where they had to change that telecommuting day from Wednesday to Thursday. The employee does not have an approved telecommuting agreement and telecommutes for any part of their workday that exceeds 2 hours. And then also we understand that there are times where there's extenuating circumstances that require us to work remotely. even if we don't have an agreement. So if you must work remotely, it must be recorded in the system for reporting purposes. An example of this might be some of those weather-related events that we had this winter. We have developed a deviation reason one-page tool that will ensure that we have consistent reasons in our reporting that are captured in the timesheets as to why employees had telecommuting deviations. This screen here shows the list of reasons that are the categories of the types of reasons. And the goal here is clarity and consistency. It's not overcomplication. On the next slide is a screenshot of those categories and example reasons that fall under each one. So here you can see the categories that were on the previous slide on the left-hand column, and on the right column includes sample reasons that fall under those categories. I know this is likely too small to read here, but this will be included with the tools that we provide you after this training this week. You will see one of the categories is for family reasons. It's important to note here that our policy does not permit telecommuting to allow employees to care for family members. So if they are using this reason, let's say because their child is on a remote learning day and you need to be at home, but the child is old enough that they are self-sufficient and you are not actually providing supervised care to them, that would be an example of when you would use that code. To the extent possible, the employee should use one of these categories of reasons. We collected data from all the reporting that's been done since October to create this list and this tool. So these are the ones that have been used up to now. But we also realize that we may not have captured every reason that might pop up. And so we do have an other category, but this should only be used sparingly when it really truly doesn't fit in any other category. So next we're going to get into role responsibilities for this new process. So staff employees are responsible for entering and reporting their time weekly. I mentioned that they're the initiator of this process. And they do this by entering it on their timesheets. It's important that they use the appropriate code with reasons if a deviation time reporting code is used. They must do this weekly so that we can ensure that we're compliant with state HR. And then we will provide job aids that show the step-by-step process for them to enter time. And we also have some short videos that were developed and will be available for them to view the process in a video format if they prefer that over the job aids. Please ensure your employees know where to find the resources. On this screen, we've linked the page, and we'll show you a little bit later how to navigate towards that page so that you can see those resources. Supervisors of staff employees have to review and approve their telecommuting entries. So this is done using the same approval process they use now for approving time, but they need to ensure that the telecommuting reporting hours are entered properly, are correct, and are in compliance. So we recommend that all supervisors of staff review the job aids and the videos created for the employees so that they understand what their employees are reporting and understand what they are seeing when they are approving their time as well. And also supervisors who also telecommute would have to follow the same process as their employees. And then the HR contacts, the most important and urgent responsibility right now is to communicate this out to your campus colleges and divisions. Ensure all your employees, including supervisors, know about this and where to find resources. I'm going to go over the communication plan in just a minute, but part of that plan is to provide HR contacts and time and absence approvers with a template letter to use in communicating with their staff. HR contacts will need to run monthly reports after the previous month closes, and they must monitor these reports to ensure compliance with the telecommuting requirements and that employees and supervisors are entering and improving it in the system appropriately. We will create a job aid a little bit later this month showing you how to run this report, but we are still working on that job aid. Non-exempts are used to keying in their hours worked weekly, so this likely won't be such a huge habit for them to get into. But exempts normally don't go into timesheets, so this will be different and new for them. They may need some reminders to do this weekly at first until it becomes a habit, but we will rely on you to communicate these to your staff and this message to your staff as you see appropriate. And then the time and absence approvers, you're going to be reviewing and ensuring timely approval of reported telecommuting hours on behalf of the supervisor. You're going to monitor queries to confirm supervisors are completing these approvals. The query names to monitor are listed on this slide. We're going to take a look at those a little bit later today, and it will be included on the list of resources on the website. And timely approval is critical to keeping the reporting accurate. So you're not alone in communicating this change. We have some planned communications. There is going to be like I said, an HR and time and absence memo will be distributed following this training, either this afternoon or tomorrow, which will include resources and an attached template letter for HR contacts to send to staff and managers of staff. This will be a template with the required information, but you're free to edit for how your staff will best receive the information. We will add an announcement on the HCM employee self-service tile at launch time. It's included in Teresa's Monday newsletter to HR contacts. We've had information about the training for the last couple weeks, and next week she'll include reminders and links to resources there too. We're going to include it in the supervisor newsletter. So the next supervisor newsletter for the Columbia campus is in April. So it will have more of a reminder tone to it. And then we're doing website updates on the payroll pages, which are already live, and we'll show you those. And the telecommuting pages will be updated by March 16th. The USC Today announcement for the Columbia campus will happen on March 16th as well. And to our friends on the system campuses, I will email you the blurbs that we'll use for USC Today in the newsletter. And you can use these how you want to in order to communicate this to your campuses or not use them at all, whatever your preference is. However, we are relying on all of you HR contacts to ensure this information reaches your respective areas. All right, and I'm going to turn this over to Judy so that you can see how to enter the time into the system. We're going to take a quick look at queries and how the time reporting codes are incorporated into those reports. And then we'll also take a quick peek at the website and where to find some resources. So, Judy?
Good morning, everyone. Okay, before we get started, just a quick reminder that we will be using a test environment, so for demonstration purposes, so it may move a little slower than normal. Okay, so in this demonstration, I'll show how to enter telecommuting deviations in PeopleSoft for a non-exempt employee. As Melissa spoke to earlier in the presentation, telecommuting deviations are used when telecommuting occurs outside an approved agreement, or when no agreement exists and remote work is required due to special circumstances. From the employee self-service landing page, we are going to click on the time and absence tile. And next, we're going to click on the enter time tile to open the timesheet. Okay. So be sure to select the correct timesheet for the work week. Use the arrows to navigate to the appropriate timesheet. In this example, the employee is approved to telecommute 2 days per week, Tuesday and Wednesday, working 7.5 hours per day. During this week, the employee telecommuted on Tuesday as scheduled, but instead of telecommuting on Wednesday, the employee telecommuted on Thursday due to a campus internet outage. On the first available row, open the time reporting code drop-down menu, select TELCM, telecommuting tracking. This should be used for telecommuting as outlined in the employee's telecommuting agreement. For this approved telecommuting entry, enter 7.5 hours on Tuesday. Okay, so we're going to leave all other days blank on this row. Click the plus icon to add a new row. On the new row, open the time reporting code drop-down menu and select TELDV, telecommuting deviation. This telecommuting code should be used for any telecommuting outside the approved telecommuting schedule or for those with no agreement and had to telecommute for other extenuating circumstances. For this deviation entry, we're going to enter 7.5 hours on Thursday, and we're going to leave all other days blank on this row. Notice the telecommuting hours at the top of the timesheet and in the time reporting code row. Because telecommuting deviation is used, comments are required. For more information and examples of telecommuting deviation reasons, please review the telecommuting deviation reasons category provided in the presentation. It outlines approved deviation categories and examples to support accurate and consistent time entry. Click the three-dot icon next to the date to bring up further actions. Okay, next we're going to click the Add View Comment option. Use the Comments page to enter comments for the reported time. In the comment field, please enter the reason for the deviation. For this example, we're going to use work remotely due to campus internet outage. This reason aligns with the campus and facilities issues deviation category. Select Add Comment. The system records the comments with a timestamp and the name of the individual who entered it. Click the X to close the time reporting comment page. Notice when comments have been added to a specific time entry, a speech bubble icon appears underneath the day. Once a comment is added, it cannot be deleted. A non-exempt employee is required to submit time each week for all hours of work. To complete the timesheet with the regular work hours, we're going to select the plus icon, select the reg hour, TRSC, and then we're going to enter hours worked for the week. Once this is completed, we're going to click the Submit button to submit the timesheet for approval. When the timesheet is submitted, a message appears across the top of the screen saying that the timesheet is submitted successfully. An email is generated that will automatically be sent to the employee and their supervisor. Okay, like we say, we're in a test environment. Okay, so there is the announcement at the top. So now note the reported and tracking hours at the top of the timesheet. The 15 hours entered using the telecommuting codes are for tracking purposes only. The employee will not get paid for these additional hours. The summary at the top of the page will show the scheduled total and reported and tracking total for the week in view. When submitted, the pending approval icon appears for the day's time is entered, indicating the timesheet is awaiting approval. That's how approved telecommuting time is entered using the telecommuting, tracking, and telecommuting deviation time reporting codes for a non-exempt employee with an approved telecommuting agreement. Okay, So we have another example, and this example will show how a salary non-exempt employee without an approved telecommuting agreement enters a telecommuting deviation in PeopleSoft when remote work is needed due to extenuating circumstances. Okay, so we're going to navigate to the timesheet. We're going to click the time and absence tile. Okay, next we're going to click the enter time tile. Okay, and once we get to the timesheet, be sure to select the correct timesheet for the work week. Use the arrows to navigate to the appropriate timesheet. On the first available row, open the time reporting code drop-down menu, select the telecommuting deviation code. This telecommuting code should be used for any telecommuting outside the approved telecommuting schedule or for those with no agreement and had to telecommute for other extenuating circumstances. For this example, we are going to enter 4 hours for the day a telecommuting deviation is needed, such as Monday. Leave all other days blank on the row. This reflects telecommuting that occurred without an approved telecommuting agreement. Short-term telecommuting must be recorded as a deviation if it exceeds more than 2 hours during the employee's regular workday. Because the telecommuting deviation is used, comments are required. For more information and examples of telecommuting deviation reasons, please review the telecommuting deviation reason categories provided in the presentation. It outlines approved deviation categories and examples to support accurate and consistent time entry. Okay, so now we're going to choose the 3 dot icons next to the date to bring up further actions. We're going to click the Add View Comment option. Use the comment page to enter comments for the reported time. In the comment field, enter the reasons for the deviation. For example, contractor or service appointment at home. This reason aligns with home and personal logistics deviations category. Select Add Comment. The system records the comment with a timestamp and the name of the individuals who entered it. Click the X to close the time reporting code comment page. Notice when a comment has been added to a specific time entry, the speech bubble icon appears underneath that day. A non-exempt employee is required to submit time each week for all hours worked. To complete the timesheet, click the plus icon and select Reg Hours from the time reporting menu and enter all hours worked for that week. Okay, the timesheet is complete. Click the Submit button to submit the timesheet for approval. Note that the reporting and tracking hours at the top of the timesheet, the 4 hours entered using the telecommuting codes, are for tracking purposes only. The employee will not get paid for these additional hours. When the timesheet is submitted, a message appears across the top of the screen saying that the timesheet is submitted successfully. An email is generated that will automatically be sent to the employee and their supervisor. The summary at the top of the page will show the scheduled total and reported and tracking total for the week in view. When submitted, the pending approval icon appears for the day's time is entered, indicating the timesheet is awaiting approval. That's how approved telecommuting time is entered using the telecommuting deviation time reporting codes for a non-exempt employee without an approved telecommuting agreement. Okay, so our final example, we're going to demonstrate a salaried exempt employee. So again, as stated by Melissa earlier in the presentation, this is used when telecommuting matches was outlined in the employee's approved telecommuting agreement. So now we're going to access the timesheet. So we're going to select the time and absence tile. I'm going to select enter time to pull up the timesheet. Be sure to select the correct timesheet for the work week. Use the arrows to navigate to the appropriate timesheet. Begin by selecting the appropriate time reporting code. Click the time reporting code drop-down arrow. We're going to select telecommuting tracking. This should be used for telecommuting as outlined in the employee's telecommuting agreement. Click in the time entry field and enter telecommuting hours for each approved remote workday. For this example, the employee telecommutes on Tuesday and Wednesday. On Tuesday and Wednesday, enter 7.5 hours. Okay. No entries are required for telecommuting on the remaining days of the week, as the employee works on campus on those days. If an employee is approved to telecommute full-time, entries must be submitted for all days of the week. Comments are not required for entering telecommuting hours as outlined in the employee's approved telecommuting agreement. This timesheet is now completed, as an exempt employee is not required to enter regular hours worked, just exceptions such as telecommuting in hazardous weather. After all telecommuting hours have been entered, select Submit to send timesheet for approval. When the timesheet is submitted, a message appears across the top of the screen saying that the timesheet is submitted successfully. An email is generated that will automatically be sent to the employee and their supervisor. Note the reported and tracking hours at the top of the timesheet. The 15 hours entered using the telecommuting codes are for tracking purposes only. The employee will not get paid for those additional hours. The summary at the top of the page will show the scheduled total and reported and tracking total for the week in view. Once submitted, a pending approval icon appears for the applicable days, indicating the timesheet is awaiting supervisor review. That's how approved telecommuting time is entered using the telecommuting tracking time reporting code for an exempt employee with an approved telecommuting agreement. Okay, so the queries that were mentioned earlier, we're now going to access those in time and labor. Okay, so from here, you can go to your manager self-service, time and absence work center. I'm going to scroll down to your queries and reported time approval status. And here you can just put in a date range. Okay, so in this example, we see that Titus Williams is our employee, and under the time reporting code, you can see his reg hours plus his telecommuting code. So this is showing that this timesheet needs approval. If you look under the time reporting status, the timesheet is still waiting to be approved. But this shows you that, you know, the telecommuting codes are listed using this report. And the next query is pending approvals. Okay, so this report pulls up everyone, and all of these reports, they are based on your security in your department. So it will only pull up the people that are under you that you have access to approve. So this one shows everyone. In this example, we use Helen Mack. So this shows everyone under her that has a timesheet that's waiting for approval. And then here you can also see that the telecommuting codes are also listed under the TRC. Okay, and that's a brief overview of the queries that you can use. Okay, Melissa, turn it back over to you.
Actually, I'm going to speak to the resources before we pass it back over to Melissa. Melissa did mention earlier that there are several resources that are available for your employees that need to know how to track their telecommuting hours on a timesheet. So on our time and labor and absence management webpage on the payroll website, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a telecommuting section. So you click that plus button to open it up. Gives you a little bit of information about the new telecommuting TRCs. Also, there is the deviation reasoning matrix that has been mentioned throughout this presentation. And this is what your employees will use to provide as a deviation reason when they have to add comments for the deviations. We also have a employee job aids. So we have job aids for the exempt, non-exempt, and hourly employees. And then we also have recordings as well, if that is what your employees prefer to listen to recording instead of just using a job aid to walk through those steps. We are in the process of updating a resource, the time and absence queries resource. And we're going to add just a little note to the queries that Judy just demonstrated, the reported time approval status and the pending approvals reported time. Just kind of adding a little note that these can be used to track the telecommuting TRCs as well. All right, I think that's it. I'm going to pass it back over to Melissa.
All right, thank you. So thank you all for demonstrating the system for us and showing us where we can find those very helpful resources. I don't know. These are a couple resources or just reminders and a recap process. This process begins on March 15th, which is Sunday. Your employees will likely begin using this more often beginning on Monday, March 16th. The last manual spreadsheet is this week, March 8th through 14th. So submit those to me on Monday through the telecommuting link, like always, and that will be the last one that you have to do. And then all staff must use the new time reporting codes moving forward. This compliance is mandatory, it's not optional, and is required by state HR that we are following this so that we can report properly. I do just want to take just a minute to thank the team that worked on this project and especially want to recognize our friends in the payroll and HCM team that made this a reality for us. We presented them with this challenge and they delivered a solution that will help all of us gain some time back in our weeks. I really can't thank them enough for their willingness, their eagerness, and responsiveness on this project. So thank you very much. All right, and now we're gonna start taking some questions. I've heard the chat pinging, so I know you guys have been active in there. And the questions we're gonna take are gonna be related to the time reporting only. So I want to focus on time reporting and the topic that we talked about today. Belinda has been answering some of your questions throughout the chat or throughout the presentation. Again, if you have telecommuting policy, approval, agreement questions, or just general questions about telecommuting in general, please send those to our telecommuting inbox. And I will review the chat after the trainings as well as the telecommuting inbox through this week and the end of the month to see if we need to create an FAQ document resource to help as well. So if you do you have a question that you didn't think of this morning after you've had some time to review the materials, please feel free to send those again to the telecommuting inbox. So, Belinda, I know we got some questions in the chat this morning.
Yes, we did. First question is from Aiken. Since comments, deviation reasons do not show on the reports, how can we HR monitor appropriate reasons are being used? Additionally, the deviation codes provided are not all are acceptable for Aiken. Can we come up with our own list of approved deviation codes?
Okay. Yeah, I can talk to USC Aiken offline as well, but they do have a specific telecommuting agreement arrangement with their employees. But yeah, so we can talk about what you share as the deviation reason, but we are in the process of creating a report for HR contacts that we'll be able to review on a monthly basis, and it will include the deviation reasons on that, so you'll be able to see it.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. This question, I think I kind of answered, but I think they have some more to it. There are consequences of some sort triggered by use of more than some threshold of the deviation hours, telecommuting deviation hours. I'm like, there's not a trigger based on the threshold of deviation of hours in the system. And there was another question of whether the system notifies the supervisor if 30 days within a 6-month period is exceeded. So there's not a threshold limit in the system that's going to trigger it. But I guess also they're asking if you see that there's more than the 30-day per 6-month period limit, is there an issue? Or what will be the consequences?
Yeah. So we honestly, this reporting requirement that we have to do for state HR, they're actually reviewing it much closer than just the 30 days in a 6-month period. That's the max that's allowed by our policy. However, we and they are both reviewing these reports. If we're seeing somebody who does not have a telecommuting agreement that is using the deviation reason, and they are looking at any 2 instances that happen in the same quarter. If it happens more than 2 times, state HR is going to be taking a closer look at that to see if they need to have some sort of an agreement on file. So it is being monitored very, very closely and strictly on that. But there will be no automatic notification. The consequence really is related to, hey, does this person need to be approved through the normal process for telecommuting through the campus and through state HR and the governor's approval, or is this something that truly is just a one-off deviation? And so we'll be looking at it like that. And then state HR, like I said, if they suspect abuse, if they expect fraud, if they expect or suspect, or they do an audit and find us out of compliance, they have the authority to revoke telecommuting for the entire university. So we just need to make sure that we are in compliance.
Thank you, Melissa. And going along with that, what counts towards the 30 days, if the employee telecommutes because of a campus issue, such as internet outage or no HVAC, is that telecommuting time and day counted against the 30 days per 6-month period?
No, those really are, that limit was on those reasons that are for the employee, for the benefit of the employee, not ones where we are beyond their control.
Okay. I think everybody's going to probably like that answer, Melissa, so thank you. All right. I kind of answered this one, but Judy and Joanne, if you can maybe step in on this one. How will this affect the schedule not met salary non-exempt employee report? Will the reporting and tracking column be combined in this report, or will the system just review reported reg hours? I said that this is just for tracking purposes, or only does not account towards hours actually worked. But if you can, I guess, address the schedule not met employee report, as I'm not as familiar with that as y'all.
I'm going to have to pass that one over to Judy.
Okay, so this should not go toward that because these hours are just for tracking. The scheduled hours are the hours that they have actually worked. But we can look at that report to see what it pulls in since we have now added this code, just to make sure, since this is a new code being added. So we can look into that and reply back to this chat.
Absolutely. And we can send out a little note to everybody as well.
Thank you, Judy and Joanne. We
You're
appreciate that.
welcome.
All right. Will the employee be able to access the deviation reasons while in the system, or will they have to visit the USC website?
Yeah, they'll have to visit the USC website to look at that resource. Like it's a one pager. If it's somebody who telecommutes, who's maybe on a telecommuting agreement, or just something that you can have that you can share with them, or print it off for them so that they have it at their desk if they need it. But yeah, it is housed there. It's not housed in the system.
Okay. Next question. If no telecommuting hours were worked, are we required to indicate none on a report? And I'm not sure if this is talking about those on an agreement or those not on an agreement. So if not on an agreement, you don't need to report anything if you don't work
Right.
from home. Melissa, do you want to speak to those on the agreement?
Yeah, if they have an agreement and they do not telecommute, they would not need to report the telecommuting hours.
Okay. And this has come up, will I be able to run queries if I do not have the manager's view in HCM? I have HCM access as an HR rep and serve as an approver for timesheets. And I answered it, if you have the time over an absence approval role, you should be able to run the necessary queries as that were shown here today. And do they want to know if they go into HCM reporting tools and search queries? Joanne and Judy?
They should have access. If they have access to those queries in time and the time and labor, time and absence work center, then they will have access to those same reports in the reporting query section of the system as well. But if they don't have that role, they will not be able to see it in either place.
So as long as they have the time and absence
Yeah,
approval
or
role.
if they're a manager, as a
Right.
manager, they'll be able to see it on behalf of the employees that they that report to them as well.
All right, thank you. All right, so will the employee be able to submit the deviation request without inserting a comment? And I believe that is not a required field on the timesheet, so they will be able to submit without inserting a comment as they can today, correct, Joanne and Judy?
Yes, it will not give them an error.
And that's where I just add that's where that supervisor who's approving the timesheets, I mean, they need to be looking for this, right? And so before they approve it, they need to, if it's a deviation, they should be looking for that comment bubble to make sure that there is something in there. And then if not, recycling it back so that they can add it. And we will also be monitoring, or your HR contacts will be monitoring this on a monthly basis. So if there's any gaps or holes, they will probably have the employee go back and enter that.
Okay. If an employee requests to telecommute at least 24 hours in advance due to planned absence for personal reasons, would that be entered as a telecommuting code, or is that, or the TELCM code, or is that code only for employees who have approved flex schedule that includes telecommuting?
Okay. Yeah. So the TELCM is only for those that have an approved telecommuting plan, and they're entering their hours based on that plan, that approved plan. If you are telecommuting, if you do not have a plan or you're telecommuting outside of your approved plan, that's when you're going to use the TELDV or the deviation code and putting the reason in.
Okay. So this looks like to be the last questions unless someone else chimes in. Is the 30-day and 6-month limit only relevant to deviations, or does it apply to an otherwise approved telecommuting agreement?
That's under the periodic telecommuting section in the policy. So that's not for those with approved agreements, only those that are telecommuting outside of an agreement or altering their agreement.
Okay, and that was the last question.
Okay, great. Those are some great questions. Thank you all. And thanks for your time here today and your partnership with us and support as we implement this new process. We appreciate your help in ensuring that this is a smooth transition across the university. And that's all that we have for you today. Thank you and have a great day.